Good morning, church.
Good morning.
Hopefully everyone is enjoying this beautiful program. It is definitely taking me back because some of the music that you've been singing are songs that I grew up with and used to sing myself to sleep at night as a youngster, and it really is fulfilling for me to hear those words again in this church. So my name is Tanya. I am the only child of Mr. Albert Reed Johnson, who some of you might remember, and Willa Cofield, my mother. I grew up for a short while here at 410 Whitaker Street, right down the street. So I feel like I'm right back at home. So I want to give you a little information about my mother. There's lots of information online. If you Google her name, you can find out a lot of things. But I want to tell you a few things that you might not know.
All right.
Okay. My mother did graduate from Hampton University after being an outstanding student here in Enfield. Okay. Striving to be the best of her class and competing not only with her class but often with her two younger sisters. And I don't know if people remember Claudette and Sylvia as well, my aunts. While at Hampton, my mother joined the charter line of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And if any of you are here today, shout out to all of you all and thank you for the beautiful program that we had here yesterday. After graduating from Hampton, my mother came back here to Enfield to be a teacher. And teaching at a couple of schools here in the area. I mostly remember in boarding school, but I was a little one, so I didn't really get to go to her classroom and see a lot of the activities that she did, but she would always come home and talk about all the fun that the students were having. So it always sounded like a really lively class. But I did get to see her teach, and someone mentioned it a little bit today about how she did the work with the voter registration. And what she did was actually help people learn how to write their own name. Because people couldn't vote without signing their names, and people couldn't write their names. So my mother had a class at the flower shop over on Pope Street in the back with a big white board, and she taught people how to write their names so that they could vote. So that wasn't just teaching in the classroom, right? That's teaching us in the community. So another thing people might not know, you might, my mother started wearing an afro in 1968. A big afro. And at one time it was almost kind of that orange, just power afro. And she did not stop wearing an afro until COVID. Okay, so that's a long time, right? I think she couldn't get her hair cut, so she just let it grow out. But my mother wore an afro before most people were wearing afros. And it got to be a big problem, actually, for my father's side of the family, who were a little conservative. And they were like, you know, your mother's wearing this afro, you need to talk to her, you know. And then I started wearing afro, and then that really made it bad. But I was proud to wear my afro because my mother had a big afro, I had a big afro, and, you know, I thought it was the best thing. We moved to New Jersey after my mother, and we moved to Durham, but then we ended up moving to New Jersey, and my mother got a job at Rutgers, where she received her master's and PhD. During that time, my mother supported me with my love of gymnastics and ballet, and we would take weekly trips to New York on the train, catching that 9:11 train to New York. We would spend the day in New York shopping after my ballet class, and we just lived it up. And on $5, we didn't have a lot of money, but we would, you know, we would live it up. The subway, I think, was maybe 25 cents back then, so it wasn't like we were spending a lot of money, but we had a lot of fun. If you don't know it, my mother has a great sense of humor, and she is pretty funny, but you have to catch her. You have to catch her. All right, we grew up listening to Nina Simone and Stevie Wonder and The Last Poets. And I was a little surprised at The Last Poets because I don't know if anybody remembers them, but they were raw, I guess is the word. And we would blast that record over and over in my house, and I was like, I was only like 14. But my mother let me say a few bad words on that record. She didn't say anything. And speaking of that, I've heard my mother curse one time. Once. And it wasn't a really bad word, but only one time. Do you remember it? You don't even remember it, because she said, I cursed? That's not a bad word, right? So I'm not gonna go on and on about all of her accolades, because again, you can read all about it, and she has a lot of words of wisdom to share with you. But one of the things I like to just acknowledge and say that I am so happy that my family is here. My mother's granddaughters and great-granddaughter are here. There they are. They can stand up. There's Erica and Corey and Malia. So just a few words to describe my mother. Focused, determined, patient, kind, innovative, always coming up with new ways to teach. If you're around her, it's always a teaching moment. You're always going to leave learning and something that you didn't know before you had that conversation. She's creative. When there's a need for something in the community, she can create, make it happen. She started a book club in Plainfield. The book club grew from women in conversation, to girls in conversation, to boys in conversation, to men in conversation, and then they started going out to the nursing homes. So this is just an idea, but it grows. She takes that little spark and it just grows. She started the Black Women's History Conference in Plainfield, New Jersey, because she saw there was a need for Black women to get together and share our experiences. So when there's a void, my mother has a way of coming up with ideas to just make it happen. Make it happen. She's also a visionary. Soft-spoken, but you have to watch out for those people with those really soft voices, because they carry that big stick, right? A lot of people would think my father was the outspoken one in the family. But behind every great man, there's an even greater woman. Right? And so I give all of that credit to my mother. And without further ado, I would like to introduce my mother, Dr. Willa Cofield.
Well, I'm enjoying this so much. I wish I could just keep sitting. Let me say good morning to the church.
Good morning.
Good morning. To all of you. This is just a wonderful, wonderful day. And I hope all of you live to have a day like this. When you're the age that I am, I hope all of you, when you get to be 95, I told my daughter that I will show you that at age 95, I can touch my toes. that will help you become 95. Well, let me start. I hope you feel a little of the joy and the excitement and the love that I feel. This is truly a glorious day.
Yes, it is.
I would say that this is the best Black History program that I have ever attended. That spirit that we experienced back in the 60s. When I came in and the choir was going, oh, that's the way it used to be. I mean, but the whole congregation would be singing and clapping and, the spirit, the morale was so high. Because we knew we were doing something important. We hoped that things were going to change forever. And we did make some very significant changes. Things are really different in many, many ways, so many ways. You just can't imagine. Most of you are so young that you never sat in the back of the bus. Or you never went to the doctor's office. And I used to go to Rocky Mountain when I was expecting Tanya. And the doctors, I would walk into the waiting room where all the white ladies in their nice starched dresses were sitting waiting for the doctor. And I would have to walk through that waiting room and down a hall as long as this church almost, to a little room at the back where there was a bookcase with no books and a raggedy chair. And Kay, looking at you, I remember taking your mother and I took you to the doctor in Rocky Mountain. And we had to go in the back door. And your mother actually cried when they pushed the needle in you with such lack of care. And you were a little baby on the table. That just came to me. Now let me stop myself. All right. Thank you so much for having me back. I thank you, Reverend Harmon. I thank First Baptist Church for making this day possible in my life. I thank you, Jenny Ward, for your organizational and planning skills. You make me proud to say that you were one of my students. Thank you, my Delta sisters. Where are they? For that beautiful program that you sponsored yesterday, which was just so well done and just thrilled me. It's just so nice to connect again with the organization that's known for service. That's what I liked so much about Delta, that it's known for being out in the community, helping those who need help. And God knows we need help. Thank you. Well, she's not here, but I wanted to thank Carla for insisting that the dedication be more than just she wanted to make it a momentous occasion. And I think we have achieved that. It is certainly in my life a momentous occasion. But I want to go beyond just today, and I want to thank Enfield, this town, and these beautiful people, these strong, courageous people, for joining the civil rights struggle 61 years ago. and becoming a part of a social phenomenon that has become one of the greatest movements in the history of the planet, I would say. And thank you everyone for being here this morning and sharing this occasion with me. It's just such a wonderful, wonderful day. I'm mindful as I sit in this church, First Baptist has changed a lot since the days when I used to come here, because it's bigger, it has a different look in some ways. Yeah. Yes, and I know we didn't have carpeting on the floors, not nice carpeting like this. And I think the pews that we sat in, I believe men made them. I believe that perhaps men in the community actually put them together. They were not comfortable like this. But I'm mindful of so many things in this church. Do you know when the church was started? 1865. And that was when the Emancipation Proclamation occurred, 1865. So soon after the Emancipation, the people, our great-great-great-grandfathers and mothers, said, let's get out of the bush harbor and let's build a church. And the man who led them was named Aeneas. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. Aeneas. What was his last name now? Aeneas. Wow. This is what happens when you get to You forget names. I do all the time. And I forgot his last name, but I have it written down. Wait one moment. At any rate, his first name was Aeneas. He was the leader, and they built this church. And he must have been a very charismatic leader, because he also built the church, started the church in Halifax. And that's where First Baptist Church started. And it has thrived, as we can see, all these years. When I come in this church, I have many memories of coming here with my mother. When I was a little child, we would come, my sisters were older, and my mother had this big black bag that she had the baby's diapers and the milk bottle, and I had to carry the black bag. And I hated that black bag. And we would walk in the church, and I would come behind her with the bag, and she would stop and look for a seat. I was so embarrassed. And we would finally find one and sit down. Now, I also remember in this church, my father, one Sunday at First Baptist Church, my father had planned a meeting. He had invited a white labor organizer who lived in Wilson to come to First Baptist and to teach people, black people, how to register and vote. Because in that day you couldn't register and you couldn't vote if you were a black person. So my father invited this man to come. I was about 8 years old. And we were all, it was announced during the service that there would be this talk after church. Well, after the benediction, after the minister gave the benediction, my father was asking people, begging them, to stay, to come and to listen to this man. So finally got a few, and they came to the front of the church. And the man was on the podium up here. And suddenly there was this noise at the back door. And everybody looked, what's going on? And my father got up and walked to the back door. There were 2 policemen at the door. And the man stopped talking, and everybody is peering what's going on at the back. My father comes back to the front of the church, and he looks at the people, and he says, I'm sorry, but we won't be able to have the meeting. And I'm so sorry that I detained you. So that's what happened. The year was 1936. And so at that time, people could not vote, but we were still trying. We were still struggling to try to see that we would be able to vote. So that is one of the memories that comes to me in this church. And with that, having mentioned the vote, I think there is voting scheduled for Tuesday. And it seems to me that at a meeting like this, we need to be aware of that. And we need to encourage everybody we know. We need to call our friends and neighbors, and we need to register. We need to vote, not register. We don't have to be all. Because history goes in a cycle. And we don't know our history well. I was in a meeting just a few days ago in which there was a young white man who is a student at Seton Hall University. And he's studying African American studies. But he was complaining that in high school he didn't have he had such little, he had such few classes in African American studies. So he had written down all the classes he had, and he showed them to the other people who were on the panel. And there was a black teacher from Newark there, Newark, New Jersey, and the teacher said to him, he was a history teacher, and he said to this young man, you have had more black history than 98% of the black students in Newark. That's shocking. I mean, but I can believe it. So, we really have to do our own educating ourselves. We have to learn, we have to read, we have to study. I was thinking, Reverend Harmon, that it might be possible to have a kind of study group in the church. And I would like to recommend the book 1619. What's the author's name, Cynthia? We were talking about it last night. Nicole. Hannah Jacobs. Jones. And anybody else in here who's read that book?
I've read it.
Don't you think it's an excellent book?
Excellent.
And I think we ought to use it as a textbook. I think that families ought to buy a copy. I think the church might buy some copies because it has so much history in it that you don't know, that I don't know, and that's the way we can learn it. For example, I read one of the essays that talked about how black men had actually defined citizenship in this country. The idea that if you are born here, you are an American citizen comes from black men. That's a tradition. Yes. I mean, that's in our because the people who were enslaved were not citizens. And so they were always pushing for that. And they had conventions, and they read the Constitution, and they read the Declaration of Independence. And they came up with this idea that if you were born here, you're a citizen. They sold it to Congress, and they wrote it into the 15th Amendment. Now, who knew that? I didn't. Now, I have a speech here, but I don't know whether I can do it. I wanted to say that on this day we're looking at women's history and black history, a kind of celebration of the two, and that in the textbooks when I went to school, there were few women. There were few women and hardly any black people. If the black people were there, they were pictured as slaves. And the women, there was Betsy Ross and Pocahontas, and they were the women. But we know that history, as many people have commented, is his story, the white man's story. And we know something else. We know that he left a lot out, and we know a lot of what he put in is not the truth. So history belongs to the person who tells the story. But I suggest that 1619 is a good book for us. I was so impressed by it that I tried to get my book club to just for a whole year just study this book. Before Carter G. Woodson, some white historians said that black people had no history. But we know that that's not true. We know that civilization began in Africa and flourished, and that we know that women have played, some people say, the most important role of all in this culture, on this planet. That if it weren't for women, we wouldn't be here. Because women bear the children and do a lot in raising them. But there's a woman named Peggy McIntosh. She's been being inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame, not Flame. Women's Hall of Fame on Tuesday night in New York City, and I'm going to be in the audience. So I'm very proud of that. She's just thrilled that that's happening to her. But she said that women do the most important work of all. And she said she uses washing the dishes as an example of the important work that we do. That just by washing the dishes, she said, women do the same things over and over and over and over and over. And they are the most important things. While the men are out talking, whatever. Women are keeping the family together and keeping life alive on the planet. I wanted to tell you, though, about First Baptist, about Reverend Kip Bow. Does anybody in here remember him? Raise your hand. Oh, good. They call him KP. Reverend KP Bow. Reverend KP Bow came to First Baptist Church in about 1938. And he set this church on fire. He was something else. He was tall, good looking, and he could sing, and he brought gospel music. Because before he came to Enfield and to this church, we sang hymns from the hymnal. But Reverend Val knew some new songs. He knew just a closer walk with thee. All right? And he knew precious Lord, take my hand. And my goodness, he set this church on fire. I can remember his singing, "Come ye that love the Lord." And after he sing all the verses, then the church would hum and pack the feet, because we had wooden floors, like a heartbeat. And I tell you, to be at church on the first Sunday of the month and hear Reverend K.T. Dowling, First Baptist Church, sing just "Come ye that love the Lord," and go through that humming and that foot pattern, it was so beautiful. It was a sweet thing. I mean, the church would be perfectly quiet. No piano, no anything, but just hearing those feet tapping the floor and those bodies rocking back and forth in that sweet rhythm. Back to my talk. You don't know, I really have worked on this talk, I want you to know. I have worked really, really hard on it. But it looks like I just can't get it. Oh, I wanted to tell you about the Bible Vacation School. Reverend Val's wife. Reverend Val's wife was named Annie. Annie, Miss Annie Val, right? But Annie W. Val, the W stood for Wimberley. And her father, I think it was her grandfather, had been a part of the North Carolina Reconstruction Legislature. He was elected, yes, that is quite, I think, a historical, that's quite significant. Now, Miss Ballard was really strong. I said, or Tanya said, that behind every great man there's a greater woman. Well, I think Miss Ballard Miss Ballard may have been the greater of the two. But at any rate, they brought Vacation Bible School to the whole idea. We didn't know anything about Vacation Bible School. But the Ballards brought Vacation Bible School, the whole concept. And Miss Ballard taught a class. And it didn't look like this, but right back over there, she taught us this verse from the Bible. I was about maybe 10. And let me tell you, I have to read the verse. Here it is. But ye shall receive power. After that the Holy Ghost is come upon you. And ye shall be witnesses unto me, both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria and unto the uttermost part of the earth. I was about 10. What did I say? 9. Let's say 9. And I have remembered that she taught. I didn't remember the verse now. I had to go back to read it. But she taught us that verse. And when COVID started, I went back. I had Karen was co-producing the video. She, Moody Reed, who was the technician, the film person, we had a phone conversation going, and Moody said, let's each one of us come in with a song next week when we talk on the phone. Come in with a song that we'll share with each other. Well, you know which song I picked? I picked "Come Ye That Love the Lord." Remember in First Baptist Church. And that's the one I shared. But I also remembered that my mother, I wanted to see, I have my mother's Bible, and I wanted to see if she made any mark or anything on that verse. because my mother, somebody told her that you should underline the things in the Bible that strike you as significant. Well, I went down and found my mother's Bible, and don't you know, she had that verse out to underline the whole verse. It was the most beautiful thing to me, because it took me back to Mrs. Babbitt and First Baptist Church and Kanye that loved the Lord. All right. Now let's look at we think history is in the book, and I guess in a way it is. But I've been trying to give you some of the history. That's our history.
Yes.
And I want you to know history is important.
Yes.
Because history explains things. You know, they make it sound real up there somewhere. But history just explains. You would never understand why things are they are if you don't know any history.
Yes.
You look at, they tell us that white families have 9 times the wealth of black families.
Right.
9 times. You would not understand. Black people must be backward or something, or lazy. Why is it that all these white people have all the money? That they own the beautiful homes, and they have the nice neighborhoods, and we are struggling. My poor neighbor who's trying to move, they're evicting her. We're setting up a fundraiser back in New Jersey. And this woman has raised 5 children, worked hard all her life, and doesn't have the money even to move from Plainfield, where we live, to South Carolina, where her daughter is going home. And what's wrong? If you don't know any history, you don't understand. So I have to come back to see what the next song is. Just bear with me. That's what my mother used to say when we had Sunday school programs and we would know the teachers well, and she would always come out and say, now we have this program together, but it's not, we didn't get a chance to rehearse, so I want you all to bear with us. So bear with me while I find where I am in this talk. You see, that's why I wrote it down, because I knew I would get off track in telling this story. But I was telling you, I know where we are. I was saying I was giving you history from the past. Now I want to talk about some more recent history. 1963, which is what we really are focusing on. I want to tell you what life was like in 1963. It was one thing, it was hugely different from what it is today. John F. Kennedy was the president. A loaf of bread cost 22 cents. A gallon of gas cost 30 cents. The average price of a new home was $12,650. And the average annual wage was $4,000. That's what I think I made teaching at Enfield School for 9 months. I made $4,000. We black people lived mostly on unpaved streets. Dixie Street, what is now called JFK Boulevard. Martin Luther King Boulevard. That was unpaved. When it rained, the water just stood in front of our house. I had some pictures of it. Unless you lived on a line that served white homes or white businesses, you didn't have any indoor plumbing. So we had either a septic tank or you had an outdoor privy. And most black people had outdoor privies in there. We lived in we waited in poorly furnished, segregated waiting rooms at the doctor's office. And the downtown stores would not serve us at the drugstores would not serve us at their counters. We sat upstairs at the Bond Theater. White men filled all the elective offices in Halifax County and the town of Enfield. The police, the courts, all the clerks and the secretaries in the town and county offices and in downtown Enfield stores were white. We even drank water from a segregated water fountain, which had over the sign said color. Most black people were not registered to vote and did not vote. Sometime after World War II, Enfield town authorities had begun blowing a whistle at 9 o'clock every Saturday night, ordering us boisterous, bothersome black people to go home. They did not care that we were the same people who had worked on their farms all week for $3 a day. They were indifferent to the help we gave their families, that we were the same people who took care of their children, prepared and served their meals. They did not care that coming to town on Saturday gave us the opportunity to relax from the back-breaking work on the farm and to see our friends. After we bought the merchandise in their stores, which often was overpriced, they wanted us to go home.
Amen.
This was what our town was like in 1963, when Reed Johnson, my husband, shocked everyone by walking into the town clerk's office and saying, "I want to be a commissioner in this town." A few days later, 12 inborn students tried to use the Enfield Public Library. And after hearing Floyd McKissick speak at First Baptist Church near Round Rapids, Marshall Harvey and Aridell Saunders approached the owners of the Levant Theater and asked that they be permitted to that he let black people sit downstairs at the theater. The owner told them, "Stay home if you don't like sitting upstairs." The next day, which happened to be Baccalaureate Sunday, those students picketed the Levant Theater. Soon after, other brave, fearless individuals, including Jenny Ward, Laura Kauser, Adele Boone, Ada McWilliams, Bud Whitaker, picketed Cuthberts, McPhails, Roses Five and Dime, and the Plantation Grill. My father, Thomas Cofield, ignored the possible consequences and opened his funeral home so that we could have meetings. The town commissioners attempted to restore peace in the community by passing an ordinance saying that no one under 21 could picket. They thought that they could kill the movement by getting the kids off the street. They were wrong. We adults took the picket signs, and the protests continued. On August 28, 1963, Enfield sent 2 Carolina Trailway buses to the March on Washington. Those buses were filled with our people. When they came back, they had a new attitude. Before they left, we had all respected this ordinance that the town had passed, that no one under 21 could picket. But on that Saturday morning, when we met at the Cofield Funeral Home, and what was his name? Wait a minute, I have to get the name. Bob Blow. When Bob Blow asked, how many people in here are ready to go to jail? Dozens of hands went up. So then we went to the Cofield brothers, and they said they would stand the bonds. So we filled the cars with our people, and we drove them downtown. Now, as soon as the police saw that there were people under 21 picketing, they started arresting them and taking them across the railroad tracks and putting them in the jail. Now, the Cofield brothers went down, and at first, they didn't stay in jail very long. They were bailed out, but they didn't go home. They grabbed a picket sign and joined the line again. So we had this constant flow of going in the jail, getting arrested, coming back, and picketing. Now, once the police saw that that was happening, then they stopped granting bail. And the jails filled up. But they weren't quiet in there. They were singing freedom songs, and the jail was rocking, I think Jenny said. Now, the police became panicky. They did not know what was going on. They were in unexplored territory. So very soon, once the people on the streets stopped walking and started staring at the jail, and word of what was going on spread throughout the town and into the countryside, and more people started coming in. And hundreds of people were in downtown Enfield. There were lots of people in downtown Enfield every Saturday at that time. Anyway, but on this Saturday, hundreds of people came in. The police said, and you know, they would always give the lowest figure that they could. They said there were 1,000 people. There may have been 2,000. There were a lot of people here. So they called for the state police, and soon these blue and white cars came in with their sirens going. And they deputized white men in the area. So there were these new police officers walking around with badges. Now people there was more and more, actually they were singing, because that's why this morning the choir just moved me so much. You made me think about how we sounded in those days. They were singing, and the song that they sang was, "We shall not be moved." Just like a tree that's planted on the water, we shall not be moved. And the people who were responsible for the whistle, I think that they panicked. They didn't know what to do. And as the crowd grew, they blew the whistle. But it didn't, they blew the 9 o'clock whistle at 6 o'clock. But nobody left. The singing got louder and more boisterous, more obstinate, more stronger. So they blew the whistle again. Again, nobody left. So they did what was the practice in those days. They got their 1 truck and they went down Dillard Street, Whitaker Street, after the streets names don't come to me at the moment. But they went down the street and they hosed the people off the street. So, the question that I have this morning, afternoon, whatever, is, were you there when the whistle blew? Is anyone here, is anybody here who went to jail on that day? If so, would you stand? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Was picketing, but did not go to jail, who was in town. Thank you. Now, is there anybody here who feels like, please keep standing, please keep standing. Is there anybody here who understands the rage that we felt as black people when we heard that whistle? Would you stand if you understand? Thank you. Thank you. And now, join me in singing what we say. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. One more time, sing it over now. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Go tell everybody. We shall not be moved. Go tell everybody.